In this video, I'm going to be mostly looking back on 2023. Join me. Roll titles. Well, hi YouTube, Brian James at Micro Four Thirds Guy with you once again. And yes, it's the, well, as I'm recording this, it's the last day of 2023. And what a year 2023's been. I've done a lot. I've been away a lot. I've done all sorts of bits and pieces. A lot to do with photography, a lot not to do with photography. And I'll also apologise before I start because I have got a squeaky chair. Never mind, that's what we get. So, what's happened over 2023? Let's have a look back, see some of the highlights of the year for me as far as the YouTube channel's been, see if I can stir some of the memories of the videos you have seen. If you haven't seen these videos, it's a good excuse, when this one's finished of course, to go back and have a look at some of those videos again. So, let's go back to January. January, let's see what happened in January. I've got lots of notes, made lots of notes here. January started off with the S5 Mark II launch. Wow, S5 Mark II. I put down a note and I did a video for the S5 Mark II launch, and I said in that, could this be a new era for M43? It certainly has been, hasn't it? Because we've got the S5 Mark II came along with phase detect autofocus, which people have been yelling at Lumix for a long time. They had the depth from defocus focusing system, which I didn't have too many problems with, but I'm mainly a still photographer. And I don't do too much sport or wildlife, but there was an awful lot of people who've been calling for Lumix to try and get a phase detect focus system for some time. And sorry, I'm still running these teeth in. New smile. I'll come to that later. A lot of people have been asking for them to develop that, and finally on the S5 Mark II they did that. And that caused an awful lot of speculation as to whether that was going to be filtered through into the Micro Four Thirds format, and which camera would be getting it. Let's look through the years we went from that. I also asked what constitutes my perfect camera. And if you remember, if you didn't see this video, my perfect camera basically goes around the body of a GX8, but with all sorts of things like phase detect and all sorts of better menus and the ability to do all sorts with it. It was a good conglomeration of all sorts of cameras, but in that basic, that rangefinder type body. I love that GX8 body and the smaller ones, but the GX8 to me is a proper substantial size camera. And I just love the fact, as I've said a few times, that I can actually fit my nose past the edge of it because the viewfinder's on the side. Doesn't really help left-handed people. There's a thought. Or left-eye prominent people. Why would the hand come in? But left-eye prominent people. Never mind. Also did another video as well on Does Resolution Matter, where I broke down between the G1's 12 megapixel and the EM1 Mark I with its 16 megapixel, the EM1 Mark II with its 20 megapixel. And I discussed as to whether it really does matter as to how many megapixels you have in this day of super-sized cameras for the megapixel count. So that was January, really interesting year. Oh no, there was another one I did in January as well. And that's when I borrowed Paul's 2.8 60mm macro lens from Olympus. I was blown out by that. I've never done much in the way of macro photography, but all of a sudden I had this little lens in my hand. It was really sharp, it was really clear, it was a really good lens, and I got some super shots without having much in the way of skills. So it really was an inspirational lens for me, because it meant I could get some of those close-up shots, which I hadn't really tried playing with much in the past. I'd never had a need to when I was shooting professionally. And I'd never really had an interest in it as an amateur, but it really fired something off. I've done a few macro shots since and really enjoyed it. So you can imagine my interest when, as soon as I put the video out, OMDS put out the 90mm macro lens, the brand new 90mm lens. And that's something I still haven't had my hands on, and I really want to get my hands on one of those. If you've got one and you'd like me to review it, please let me know. So that was January. January, of course, I don't like the cold months particularly. I prefer the warm months. But we went on to February, and February for me was great. I got the little G1 just before Christmas, this ancient old camera which I bought for next to nothing, 12 megapixels, bright red body on it, and with all that horrible sticky stuff, you know, the sticky stuff which is on there all the time. Well, it was covered in that, so I managed to scrape that off. cost me about 25, 30 pounds, something like silly, this camera. And it makes a really fun, interesting camera, which you don't really worry if you break it. It's superb. Every bit of Micro Four Thirds camera, and when you can stick something like a 100 to 400 Leica lens on the front of that, on this £25 used camera, which was what about 12, 14 years old, something like that, 15 years old, absolutely knockout. So the G1, I did a test on that. Since I was doing that, I'd gone down to Kendal with my friend Mike, and there's more to come about Mike shortly, but I went down to Kendal with my friend Mike and his dog Harley, and we did a shot at the stone circles down there. Absolutely fantastic. I used my G9 and the 100 to 400 Leica lens, which again I borrowed from Paul Murray. Thank you, Paul, for those, and had a fantastic time. I loved that lens. It really was a serious jump up in quality from the 100 to 300 Mark I Lumix lens that I have. And it's a lens which is on my bucket list at the moment. But of course, they've just recently released a Mark II version of that, so I'll be interested to see what that's like. After that, we got into March. We flew. I didn't do too many videos in February, but it's a short month anyway. It's a short month. And it wasn't a leap year, was it? 2023, no, it wasn't a leap year. So we had even less days in that one. March, I got off to Cyprus again. First trip to Cyprus this year, and I did a 25mm shootout between the 25mm f1.8 Olympus lens and the Lumix 25mm f1.7. Both plastic, fantastic lenses. Olympus considerably more expensive, but it wasn't until you put them together you saw the shortfalls of a lens which I actually previously I'd rallied around. The little f1.7 Lumix lens, 25mm. I'd rallied around that and thought it was quite a decent lens, especially for its price. It is actually quite a good lens for its price, but it has some serious focus breathing issues, especially when being used on an Olympus camera. So I tried that on my EM1 Mark II and also on my GX8, and on both counts the Olympus came out best. So I had my nice standard prime lens, if you like, to be used for the future by 25mm Olympus f1.8. So I took the GX8. The GX8 was my holiday camera then. I've been trying to take a different camera on holiday each time I've been across to Cyprus recently, because I want to find out what it's like to use these cameras when you're on holiday, taking snapshots, but also taking some serious shots with it too. And the GX8, although it's a few years old now and obviously hasn't been in production for a good while, it's still one of my favourite cameras ever. And it really handled beautifully. It represented itself totally well. And it had the advantage of not looking too professional. So you could walk around the streets and you didn't draw attention to yourself. Of course, I went over to Cyprus. I went over tough and ruthless. And as you'll remember from the videos, I came back rough and toothless. I lost 2 front teeth, had to have bone reconstruction, I had to have implants put in. And that meant that I had to go back later in the year. So I was left with 2 front teeth missing. And you'll see that in a few of my videos if you go back. Probably one of the most aesthetically embarrassing things I've ever had happen to me. Especially because my daytime job, if you like, when I'm not doing photography now, I'm a professional entertainer, I'm a singer. So to go on stage and sing and have a smile which had a big gap in was a little bit embarrassing. But thanks for all the really good comments, really supportive comments I got for everybody online. I think I managed to hide it reasonably well, apart from the fact I spoke about it a lot. But visually I think I managed to hide it quite well at that time. More about the teeth later. What else did I have down? Oh yes, I looked at my favourite cameras, my favourite beginner's camera, and I put the proposition that my favourite beginner's camera is the one that I'm actually recording this video on now as a current model beginner's camera, because it does video well, it does stills pretty well, and it's ideal for a beginner, and that's the Lumix G100. But I also wondered if Lumix's most unpopular, most hated camera could actually be one of the best beginner's cameras. Prompted lots and lots of comments. Thank you for the comments through the year as well, by the way. Prompted lots and lots of comments on that. But I still stand by it's one of the best beginners cameras I could suggest to anybody. Could be a G100 Mark II coming out soon as well. That's another thing I mentioned this year. And I'd be really interested to see what's on that. That could have the G9 Mark II 25 megapixel sensor. That could be interesting, especially if it's got the face detect. Could be good. Finally, finished off March with a discussion on my iPhone 13. I bought an iPhone 13 and I was using that across in Cyprus along with my DJI Osmo 5 gimbal with the extendable arm gimbal, and I was really knocked out by the results of it. And mobile phone cameras have come on a huge amount, and yes, it's still a tiny sensor. Yes, it is, a lot of it's to do with post-processing, but some of the results you can get from that, from a camera in your phone, are just unbelievable. And if you do try using it, it's great. But it did prompt a discussion, and again, thanks for all the comments, because there was some quite good discussions on this one about whether you should go to a mobile phone or whether it's sacrilege to leave a proper camera behind and use your phone for taking photographs. Really good discussions on that one. I love the camera, by the way, on the iPhone 13. It really came out well. April. Well, April was a strange one for me, because I introduced you to the plight of my friend Pete, who you later found out was called Mike. I called him Pete at first to try and save some of his dignity in case he didn't want to be made public. And I reached out to you for a little bit of help. The guy was my musical agent, and really salt of the earth guy, really nice chap, who'd gone through some really bad times and ended up living in a van. The van didn't even, when I saw him in January in this van, it didn't have a proper bed in it. Him and his dog were living in this van with no heater. Didn't have any sort of diesel heater in there. The only way he could get warm would be to run the engine all night, which would have been no good. All his worldly possessions are in this van, and thanks to you and an awful lot of other people, we managed to get an awful lot done for Mike, or Pete as I was calling him at first. We managed to get an awful lot done for him. The proceeds of those videos went straight towards him, to try and give him a bit of a G up. We'd managed to rebuild the whole of the inside of his van, put a diesel heater inside, they put mains electrics in, battery electrics, so he had a dual charging system into his van. It had all sorts of things that were managed to do, and to pay for that, a lot of it came from my subscribers online and from my viewers online. And I did do a thank you video along with Mike where he revealed his real name, but I just want to say thank you again. The internet can be a caustic place. The internet can be whatever what that bell was. Never mind, I think it's my phone. The internet can be try this again. I'm not succeeding on this one. The internet can be a very caustic place. It can be a very backstabbing place. It can be acidic. But there's times when you see people's real generosity come out. You see times when you see people really come to the fore, and that's what you did for my friend Mike. So thank you all for that. More than I can put over on this video. The same month though, I also did a GX7 review. I had never had my hands on a GX7. They're a lovely tiny little camera. Obviously I've got the GX8, but the GX7 is just so neat and tidy and miniature and is wonderful. And I had to go with that. Another one courtesy of Paul Murray. Thanks, Paul. Drawbacks, well, I didn't like the viewfinder on it much, but the rest of the camera I thought was just fabulous. A really small camera, which is what Micro Four Thirds is really about. Small, usable, productive, high quality cameras which give high quality images with replaceable lenses, so you've got a real flexible system which can fit in your pocket, and the GX7 certainly does that. It's beeping again. I think there's messages coming through. Probably people saying Happy New Year, because it's getting very close. So May came along. May, Scarborough, Lincoln, York. And finally, I went on another trip. I'd been away again, so I was always going away in the caravan. I've had a thoroughly enjoyable year with Mrs. Four Thirds, going away in the caravan to various places, and thoroughly enjoying that, and using those as an excuse to go out. So I managed to, although we've had the caravan at Filey, I managed to get into Scarborough, York, beautiful historic town of York, and the historic city of Lincoln. Well, they're both cities, city of York and city of Lincoln. Incredibly historic places. And also, of course, to Filey, where I was. And that also gave me the opportunity to go and see a place I'd never seen before, but I really wanted to, which is the Yorkshire Air Museum at RAF, what was RAF Elvington, just outside York. If you haven't been there, it's wonderful. It really is. It's one of those places where you can't see the whole thing in one day. There's so much to see, and the aircraft are so well maintained, and it was an absolute joy to go along and see it. If you haven't seen the video, please watch the video. It was an enjoyable time for me, and if you get the chance to go there, it's just fabulous. The history of flight. The only place I know where there's a complete Halifax bomber. They had 3 different Buccaneers, the Hawker Siddeley Buccaneer, or Bristol Buccaneer originally, then Hawker Siddeley Buccaneer, 3 of them all together in different schemes. Harriers, all sorts of things. Absolutely worth going. If you get the chance, go down there. I then wanted to, well, I realised there were too many cameras, and I decided I needed to sell one. So I reached out and asked you what camera I should sell. And the answer was none. I couldn't sell one. I tried to work out which camera of my collection to sell, and I just couldn't work out which one to do. The older cameras, which are less attractive, are also less attractive to others for the price. So what was the point of getting something and getting peanuts for it when I can keep the camera itself and enjoy it? The more expensive cameras had features that I really wanted to keep and I enjoyed, so I ended up selling none of my cameras. Probably a bad move. Certainly is if the wife's watching. Don't look, Mrs. 4/3. And I finished off May by sending a love letter to OMDS and Lumix, because I felt that both of them were somewhat letting us down and letting the Micro Four Thirds system down. It's an interesting, thought-provoking video. If you get the chance to go back, that was at the end of May. So we reached the halfway point in the year, June, and I got these. I don't know if you can see it there. My little Rode One wireless mic, Rode Go wireless mic. I bought these used. I buy a lot of things used, but I bought these used off my fantastic friend Paul Thompson from Paul Thompson Photography. Fantastic because I've known him a long time and I've got a lot of respect for him as a person. Fantastic because if you see his photography, it will really knock you out. I wish I had the skills in the landscape photography that he has. Check out his channel on YouTube, Paul Thompson Photography. He lives just in the next village from where I live, up here in Cumbria. He does workshops around the world. He's absolutely fantastic. And he's a really nice guy to boot. So if you get the chance, Paul Thompson Photography. But I bought these off him and I've been using them ever since. I'm really impressed with them. Took the caravan out again up to Moffat for a photo walk. Had a wander around Moffat. And that was an enjoyable experience. But of course, in that same month, Photoshop launched their new version, which has a lot of AI implants in it. A lot of AI. And I questioned as to whether AI was taking over photography and taking some of the skills away. Still out on that one because it's advancing all the time, and I don't really know what I think about that still. Even though I did a video on it, it's changed so much since then. I also did a couple of videos for my favourite budget lenses for Micro Four Thirds for both for event use and also for studio use. If you're doing event photography and if you're doing studio photography, I was asking what the best Micro Four Thirds lenses in the budget category were. And I also looked at the difference between budget and pro lenses to work out what you were really getting for all that extra money and all that extra weight and extra glass. Was it a huge difference? That took us to July, so we're actually past the halfway point during the year. And before I go on to the second part, don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, why not? We're over 10,000 subscribers now. We're nearly, I think we're almost at 10,100. So it's free. Just hit the link below to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up on this video as well if you would. I really would appreciate it. And also, don't forget, if you'd like to buy me a coffee, more words about the coffee later, there's a link, a PayPal link in the description below. And that's just beside the link for my Patreons. And I'm going to talk about patrons at the end, but it's just beside my list if you would like to become a patron, or you can leave me a super thanks if you would as well. And thank you to everybody who's helped this channel over the year. As you can see, I get around quite a bit. What I make from this channel does not pay for what the channel costs, by any means. It costs a fortune in comparison to what I've got from this. But at the same time, everything that has been donated, everything that's been given over, has really been gratefully received because it does help to make it possible without totally bankrupting myself. So thank you, everybody, who support the channel. However, let's get back onto July, where my list's going down quite nicely. I started doing my first live streams in July. I started doing the test on the live streams. I haven't done any live streams recently, but that's going to change because I'm going to get back to them next year. I enjoyed doing the live streams. I enjoyed having interaction with the people on the channel. It really brings it to life somewhat, because instead of just me sitting here and preaching into a little piece of glass in front, it meant that I got some reaction back in real time. I could actually have people asking me questions. I could have people making comments towards what I was saying. And I just enjoyed that. I thought it was absolutely fabulous. So the ones who did join on the live stream chats this year, thank you. There'll be more next year, and I'm looking forward to them. I also joined in a couple of live stream chats, actually. Robin Wong. If you haven't seen Robin Wong's videos, it's worth checking out. Really is. A Micro Four Thirds photographer from Kuala Lumpur. And he's just an absolutely fantastic guy. He's just brings so much joy to photography. You watch him, and he's got the most enamoring smile. It's a fantastic smile which starts there and ends there, and is just fabulous in between. And he's one of these people who makes you want to pick a camera up and just go out and enjoy it. So thank you for your inspiration, Robin. You've been very inspiring. But I had I put a couple of comments onto his videos, and I was really pleased that he watches my videos too. And that was such a humbling thing when he was replying to me by name. So he must have known there, because it comes up as that Micro Four Thirds guy on the title, but he was replying to me as Brian. So he's obviously watched my videos, and that is such a humbling thing. So if you haven't checked Robin Wong out, please do. He's fabulous. It's just an inspiring guy to watch, and an inspiring guy whether it's photography or just as a person. However, where do we go from there? Yes. G2 speculation start. Sorry, G9 Mark II speculation start. There's going to be a G9 Mark II. Is it going to be a G10? Well, we'd already had a G10. What's it going to be? What's the spec going to be? And little things started getting leaked and built up the tension, which was really interesting what was happening there. Again, another trip out in the caravan, this time to Barnard Castle, over in the northeast of England. The Dominic Cummings dentist, I believe, from during lockdown made that place very famous. But went across to Barnard Castle and to the High Force waterfall just outside in Durham. Beautiful location, beautiful walk out there. I didn't realise there was a low force waterfall just down the road, which is actually easier to get to, and in some ways a little bit more striking. So there'll be a video come from that one sometime, because I've got to go out and see low force. I missed it last time. But went out there, really enjoyed that trip across to Barnard Castle. And while I was out there, I got a delivery of a Zion Weeble S gimbal, which I started trying to use then, and that was fabulous to try and use that one. So I did a wander around Barnard Castle with that. Interesting to use. Later on in the year, the next month, I had a wander around Carlisle. I don't know if you remember that one as well. So I used it a couple of times on that. I also asked a question, because I'd got some real bad noise issues with my G9. And I asked the question, do I bite the bullet and go back to full frame? Ooh, wow. I don't think I've seen such virulent reaction from comments for anything else that I've posted. I actually lost over 100 subscribers because of asking that question. I didn't say I was going to do it. I said I was considering maybe going for an S5. And I lost over 100 subscribers because I'd questioned as to whether it was worth going to a different camera system. Not getting rid of Micro Four Thirds, but just trying another one for that, for some professional work. So I'd done a professional shoot, which I was unimpressed with the noise on. Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable, the reaction to it. And watch those videos again. If you haven't seen them, it is worth watching. Well, rather actually, watch the video, then spend some time reading the comments. I had to delete some comments. There was a couple of really nasty comments amongst them. Interesting how people's brains work. But as I said, I had a G9 noise problem, and that went on for a little while. Did a few tests with the G9. I tried resetting almost everything, but eventually I found a way to reset it. And because I'd reset the camera fully, did a full ground-up reset, if you like, by taking the battery out overnight and letting the whole thing discharge itself, it cured the noise problem. So there's something which was stuck in the memory causing some issues, or stuck in the processing causing issues. And I managed to get rid of that. So I'm very happy with my G9 Mark I again. And that made me rather smile, made me happy. That was July. August came along. And August took me up into Scotland. I visited a couple of places up in the north of Edinburgh, the Edinburgh Stirling sort of area, Fife. Bowness and Kinnell Railway, which was fabulous to go on, and had a look around the engine sheds there and had to go on the steam train. The Falkirk wheel, which is something I've wanted to go on for years. And the Kelpies, seeing the Kelpies, which was fabulous. So that was a really good trip. I also asked if modern lenses are too sharp. And it's something I'm going to carry on with this year a little bit as well, because I was looking at some of those classic Hollywood photos from the 30s. You know, the fabulous ones of Bergman and Ava Gardner and people like that, you know, Eddie Lamar. Some fantastic black and white shots of those people. And they're not sharp. They're beautiful. And it's almost, you know, it was a case of when I started doing photography, to do some of these portraits, you'd get a woman's stocking and put it over the end of the lens, or put some Vaseline on just to get that very soft focus. So it's interesting that we're going for super sharpness these days, when at one time it was considered not the way to go. Look into that sometime next year, I think. Did a lot in September. I did a video on bracketing, and then Angus McNaughton, 1375, challenged me. First of all, he gave me enough for a cup of coffee on the specification that I went to a different coffee supplier, Starbucks. Not sponsored by Starbucks, not sponsored by Angus. Well, I was actually sponsored by Angus, I suppose, because he did dinner for a cup of coffee. So thank you, Angus, for that. And we've had it's created something of a ding-dong, a very friendly ding-dong battle between me and him since, because he's actually a tea drinker, and I was challenged to drink tea. I hadn't drank tea since I was a child, and I actually did try some tea. I didn't like it. I'm sorry, I didn't like it. He does have another drink which I am going to try at some point, which I keep on forgetting which one it is. But Angus McNaughton, 1375, thank you. You really made it quite interesting for me for that, and a lot of fun. So thanks for the interaction on several videos about that. What was it? What's my notes down here? What have I got? Bloody tea. Bloody tea. I also started the 365-day photo challenge. Fail. Mega fail. A few people in the comments said it's harder than you think. Goodness, it is. I lasted about 3 weeks on that one and sort of slowly swept it under the carpet so you didn't know. So yes, 365-day photo challenge. And, ooh, I hate this chair. 365-day photo challenge went out the window, I'm afraid. Never mind, that's the way it goes. We, of course, got the launch of the G9 Mark II, and that really was a mega event. And it's something, I did a video on why I wouldn't be buying one. And it's not because the camera's bad under any circumstances. It's just I don't see the benefits I would get in buying one with the cost difference. I have had my hands on one recently, and of course it's basically an S5 body, S5 Mark II body I should say. Pros and cons. I do like the original G9 body. I think the G9 grip and the whole thing is just lovely. So I am very reluctant to change away from that. But the S5 Mark II is not a bad body, and the big difference between them body-wise is just that it doesn't have the G9 doesn't have the ventilations in for the longer video. It does, from all reports, seem to have some fantastic changes in the operation of the camera over the G9 Mark I. So it could be something I'll look at in the future. But at the moment, not buying one. I also got stranded in Somerset because it took the caravan all the way down from the north of England, all the way down to the south of England. I stuffed up and left the oil cap off on the car, which covered the alternator, which blew the alternator. So I was stranded for 4 days in Somerset, which I didn't want to be, en route down to Cornwall. So did a few little videos in Somerset. Saw my old alma mater, if you like, which was Royal Air Force Locking. #1 radio school used to be there, and that's where I did my radar training with the Air Force. It's very, very sad to see. It's a housing estate now. It's terrible. But I also was sitting, we'd gone down to Cornwall, gone down to Perranporth in Cornwall, and I was sitting talking to my wife, and she told me about the tree at Sycamore Gap on Hadrian's Wall being illegally cut down. And that's something which an awful lot of us photographers had the pleasure of taking photographs of. If you don't know it, have a look at the beginning of the film Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And when he first comes back into England, he's having a battle at this place where it's a valley with the tree in the middle, and that's Sycamore Gap. So it was made famous in that film for millions of people. and I was incensed. I did a video, and isn't it strange? You put all this time and effort into doing reviews or doing photo walks. I had a 5-minute rant in the car about how I was furious about the tree being chopped down. And it became the most viral video I've had. Within 48 hours, I had 40,000 views on my videos. Normally I get 5, 6 if I'm lucky. If I'm doing some of the walks, it could be less than 1,000. 40,000 views on that one. 18,000 views on the second video, and 10,000 on the third video I did for it. Unbelievable. It just shows, and some of the comments on that were interestingly bad. So let's take a short break while I change this battery. After that, I got the opportunity, some great photography down at St Ives and Perranporth, watching people surfing. Went all the way around Cornwall, had a thoroughly enjoyable time in Cornwall. Then, of course, we went off after that in November. In October. Getting mixed up. End of September, beginning of October, we went off to Weymouth in Dorset. Watched some beach enduro, motorcycle racing on the beach. Had a wander around Cerne Abbas. I did a video on Cerne Abbas. If you haven't seen that one, it didn't get a lot of views. But it's one of the nicest videos I think I've ever shot. It's just a beautiful place. If you haven't seen it, I'll put a link up here. Because it is worth watching. If you haven't seen it, please do watch it. It's not a long video. But I was treated with so much kindness and welcoming from the people who own the place where the Abbey was there. It was just a lovely, lovely video to go and do. A beautiful day for me, and it's just one of those really nice ones. If you haven't seen it, check on the link I've just put up there and go and see it if you would, please. I'd appreciate that. Carrying on in October, I talked about planned obsolescence in cameras. Do we have planned obsolescence? Well, I think we do. I also asked if modern cameras were too complicated, and I do tend to think they are, but it also, and especially since the release of the G9 Mark II and the possibility of the GH7, is it time that we had a stills-only camera? The only stills-only camera that I've ever had in Micro Four Thirds is my G1. It doesn't do video. But I would love to have a camera which is small, pocketable, something like the size of the GX9, without all the video capability. It doesn't need to have the video capability. You know, almost like my G100 here, but the G100 only has an electronic shutter. I would like something which is a proper stills camera with all the stills facilities, all the good bits of that, but doesn't need to have the video. Cut the video out, but make it affordable too. Make it reflect the fact that it's a big difference, doesn't have the video. But give me a really good stills camera of current spec, and I would love that. So it's one worth thinking about. I did a squirrel shoot, and again, there was some rather nasty comments on about noise. Shocking. I was described as shocking, the noise, and that led me into looking at things like Topaz AI when I came back, because I'd had the noise problems early on in G9. But when I'm doing professional shoot, I don't want to be doing too much post editing. I want to be able to get as much right the camera as I could. But these squirrels were very late. They were up at a really high ISO, you know, 25,800 or something like that, or 25,600. It was really high, the ISO on that, and there was a lot of noise. So I tried using Topaz AI to really good effects. So that was there. That brought us to November, towards the end of the year, November and December. And it was back to Cyprus again. But this time I went over rough and toothless and came back tough and ruthless again, with my teeth in place, all my implants done and things, and I'm so pleased. It was just an enjoyable experience. It's never enjoyable having somebody pulling your mouth apart, but it's an enjoyable experience to come back and have my confidence back, shall we say. So that was enjoyable. So it's a new smile. But I think the most important thing of that trip was I had a game-changing experience. And I mean game-changing. That was the Sigma 30mm f1.4 lens. I had a lot of people that recommended that lens. It's still something I need to test fully. I've not done a portrait shoot on it yet. which is the real thing for me that I want that lens for, is to do portrait shoots. But I'm just knocked out by the lens. And if you haven't seen it, again, go and have a look at the video. It's very, very recent. But the 30mm Sigma f1.4, wow, gorgeous, gorgeous lens. Considering it's a lens which actually a multi-format lens, it's got different, you can get it in different mounts. So it's not designed for Micro Four Thirds, but it's just beautiful. And I think the advantage of it as well, with being put onto a Micro Four Thirds lens, a lot of the problems that you get with quality of distortion and things are missing, because we're only taking the smaller portion out. It's meant as an aps-c lens, so we're taking that smaller portion out the center, where everything's super sharp, where everything's super clean. And I think that's maybe one of the really big things that makes it fantastic. It's a good lens. It's a nice in-between lens. And I did say about my 25mm being my standard prime. Well, this one I think has taken over from it, even though it's a bit bigger. I think it's a far better lens. And that also brought me on to the idea, which I think I missed actually. Did I miss this a little bit? Yes, I did. The month before. About the idea of banning full frame equivalents from the channel. I got tired of trying to explain that something that this is a 25mm, but it's a 50mm equivalent on a full frame, but it's about a 35mm, oh, whatever it was, 36mm or something, equivalent on an aps-c, and how the depth of field changes. And just use it for what it is on this lens. It's what so I categorize my lenses as to how I see them in a picture, rather than an equivalent. I don't shoot full frame on this. I don't need to know what the equivalent is. I need to know what happens on a Micro Four Thirds sensor. That also brought me to the fact that, because I was back in Cyprus as well, I took a different camera again, and this time I took my G9 Mark I as my holiday camera, and it was an interesting experience. I don't recommend it for that. It's one of those things, it's a beautiful camera, but it just felt big and bulky and a little bit too much pro looking. Where the GX8 had looked quite non-pro, this one in the hand, walking around the streets of Paphos, looked a little bit too pro. So that brings us to the end of the year. And what happened at the end of the year? I hit my 10,000 subscriber point. And 10,000 subscribers is a major milestone for me. I remember when I hit my first 100 subscribers, I thought, this is incredibly hard work. To be able to get 1,000 subscribers, even to get monetized, is going to be absolute purgatory. And then all of a sudden things started taking off. And although this channel's been going a few years now, it's been a nice, steady, slow but sure climb to 10,000 subscribers. And one of the things that I really, really do enjoy about Micro Four Thirds is the community. I've said a few times during this video about some of the naysayers who've been nasty online, but I don't necessarily think that they're Micro Four Thirds shooters. I think the majority of the Micro Four Thirds shooters that I've talked to, that I've met, they've been wonderful people, and they really have. And everyone I've met a few people. I met people I had a nice 2-hour cup of coffee with a viewer, Kevin, over in Paphos recently. I've met a lot of my viewers, and I've enjoyed the interaction with my viewers. I've enjoyed the interaction with the ones who get onto the live streams. And I think that the Micro Four Thirds community really is a special community. And I want to thank each and every one of you. And yes, I am pointing. You shouldn't point, but I'm going to point at you, because you are fantastic. And I'm really pleased to be in your community. I'm really pleased that I can be something of use in that community. The little ticking noises, by the way, are the dog. I've got Honey wandering around by my feet. But no, I really am over the moon with that community. And I'm seriously over the moon with my Patreon patrons as well. Thank you, all of my Patreon patrons. You're patient people. You've been enjoyable to interact with. I've enjoyed doing some of the videos and letting you see them a little bit earlier than the rest of the YouTube. But I'm really appreciative of the amazing support you give me, because as I say, I don't make enough money to by any means pay for this channel. Most of it comes out of my pocket, and especially when I'm buying gear, that's it's ridiculous. I couldn't make enough on YouTube to be able to buy what I do, but without you, it would be an awful lot harder. So thank you. But saying about buying gear, this is one of the last things of the year. I got this yesterday. It's a box. There's no getting past it. I know what I'm talking about. This is a box. I got this yesterday, and I've been approached by Zion, who asked me if I would be willing to review one of their products, which I'll not tell you what it is yet. I'll tell you in the early new year. Now, I get quite a lot of offers online asking me if I review equipment or software and things like that, such as fancy cleaning kits or sensor cleaners or whatever it is. But if it's something I don't use or doesn't appeal to me, I'm not going to say yes just for the sake of it. I've been very careful about that. I've only had two things that I've ever done that, which were two lenses, one from 7 Artisans and one from TT Artisans. And I was given pretty much free rein on those to say what I liked, which is important, because if I don't like something, I'll tell them I don't like it. So this thing, I got an email just the other day asking if I'd be interested in this, and this is something that I'd be interested in seeing. If it is poor, I'll tell you it's poor, but this will be one of the first videos I do in the first week of the new year, so keep your eyes open for it. But interesting product from Zion, who are also the people who do my Weeble S gimbal, which I'm very impressed with build quality and very impressed with its function on that. So I'll be really interested to see how I get on with this. So that's 2023. What's in line for 2024? Well, hopefully a lot more videos. It's been a bit difficult to do them this last couple of weeks. I've been recovering from my Cyprus trip. Although I got nice new teeth, I did come back in quite some state with my legs and things like that. So been getting myself put back together, but I have a really, really interesting thing to happen in the first quarter of 2028 and the first quarter of 2024. Which I'm really excited about, but I'm not going to tell you about at the moment. But I really am excited about involving the Micro Four Thirds community. I'm really looking forward to testing this bit of kit here. I'm looking forward to some of the new releases that we're going to be getting through in 2024, because I think 2024 is going to be a fantastic year for new releases. I think there's some interesting things coming, especially in the sensor design on Micro Four Thirds cameras. We'll see what happens with that during the year. But I also think that there's going to be an awful lot more opportunities for us to do some fantastic photography. And I really do think that the community is something to be proud of being part of. So I'm looking forward to 2024. I hope you'll join me on this journey, because it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the journey through the last couple of years. So please join me in 2024. Please keep on taking your camera out. Keep on enjoying your photography and keep on having fun with your photos, because that's what it's all about. Till next year. Bye-bye.